All right, let me finish up the good stuff. And I was talking about the functionality of EDU 2.0, and I do think that it has been very easy to control and to manage. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about when it comes to function was the ability to add students to my class. I can add my students in bulk, and there's a couple ways I can do that. I can do it if I have an Excel file, or there's a form that I can use, and I use the form very often. Because when I do, I want to be secure, and when I want to add my students, I make sure that I don't use their real names for the most part. I might use their first name and a last initial, but their user IDs are all pretty much either computer generated or they are. I allow them to generate their own to have a little fun with that. But the last thing I want to talk about is security, and security is pretty tight. And that's when we get back to policies. This stuff also ties into security. This walled community is very important, and this function, turning these off, is also helpful when it comes to security. So those are all good things about EDU 2.0. But what about the bad? Okay, when it comes to the bad stuff, let's go back to the tools. Okay, I'm going to go and log back in as a student. And I'm trying to do this. All right, there we go. So back to here. Now, if we go to one of the classes, the negative side when it comes to tools is that the blogs don't really they're not fully functional blogs. They are WYSIWYG editors. And as you can see, there's no sidebars. There's no, there's really not much. I think that what I'd like is to have an RSS feed, and I think they offer permalink, which doesn't help me when I want to use a professional reader like a Google Reader or something. So that's been kind of a problem, but not the end of the world. The only other thing here is I don't use the wiki very often. It's not very good. It's just very simple. And I use it more for file sharing, just to pass a file along. Calendar. I don't. The calendar is what it is. Kids don't check it very often. I find that that's a problem. That they also, when a student logs out and logs back in, let's log out and log back in as a student. Now, when I log in, you can automatically see that there's assignments past due, and that's very helpful. There's also messages here, but often, like you can see, these are students got copied from my due now, so all of their messages get filled up, and this is just something that they're learning how to turn off, but you can see that their messages just get filled up with copies from comments on my blog. Okay, and that's just little functions that students who are in sixth and seventh grade don't have the capabilities yet to know how to turn off. Here's another thing: verbiage. Kids don't understand what email sync is, and they might read the tips, or that might be too much information for them. But that is not really kid-friendly language. So there's calendar. There's if I go back just a couple bits here, and let me get back there. Oh, the spinning head of death. There we go. All right. But when you go to learn, we have resources. Now, students, I find I'm using my blog to host my lessons and my resources more than I'm doing this. So I don't think it's a function or a problem with EDU. I think it's just a problem with I want them to be able to access their lessons and their homework as quickly as possible, and this requires that they log in, and I know that's a big step, but when they're at home, they only have to go to my blog, which is not on EDU 2.0. So that is a big, that's not something that they really do too much. Plus, most of my lessons or resource content gets put on my blog as well. So I'm finding that I don't use that as much. So yes, I find that that I'm putting these things on my blog more. So I think that also I haven't used the social aspect of EDU as much as I think that the students would like me to, and that's probably just because we're just learning how to do this, and in a couple years I'll start unlocking some of these nicer features, these social features, as we get used to using them and use them responsibly. So that is also something that I'm looking forward to doing. But overall, I think that this is a good product for people who believe in a free web hosted world. I think that I'm not worried about the security of EDU 2.0 because so much of my content is hosted on other sites like Wikispaces and like VoiceThread. Okay, I use those other sites, and most of the kids host their stuff there. So when they turn stuff into me in their class, they're just turning in links to other things. So I'm not worried about EDU. If it goes down, most of our content is not really going to be going down with it. The only thing that could go down with it is the grade book, and the grade book is something that just needs to be exported, and that can be exported very simply. And if I can show you that very easily, when you go to a class, you can click on the gradebook, and the first thing it tells you to do is to export your grades, and that's something just to do safely as a backup. But overall, I do think it's a probably the best, if you're going to talk about free learning management system, best one out there right now. But there are some things certainly that it could improve on. I wish I could have RSS more functionality there. I can't change that, but I certainly can write the administrator and hope that they add it. But they do add new things just about every day, and you can see all the different things that they have available on EDU 2.0 are right there, and whether they get used or not is another question. There is actually a multilingual function, which has been very helpful for ELL students. So, in a nutshell, EDU 2.0, the good definitely outweighs the bad if you believe in a web-hosted world. So, my name is Daniel Rizak. I hope you enjoyed this little chat. Please come back to my blog if you have any questions. Thanks.